Galen? Good evening, and welcome to our special educational forum tonight on American anxiety by Dr. Donald Neeper. I'm Earl Marie Hansen. I'm a member of the Unitarian Church, Forum Committee, and I am your hostess for the evening. So I wanted to start with some housekeeping notes. For those of you who came in through the front doors, if we have an emergency, that's where you're going out, okay? So write those front doors right out there. If you want to find the restrooms, you go out these two doors to the sanctuary, bear left, then take an immediate right, and the restrooms are on the left-hand side of the corridor, just a short way down. So please silence your cell phones now, or any other communication devices you have. The talk by Don is going to be followed by a question and answer period. And then after that, we're going to move into the fellowship hall for beverages, cookies, and socializing time. Please save your questions until the end of the presentation. And we would like all questions to be asked using this roving microphone that'll be on later. And when you use it, hold it about an inch from your mouth in order to improve the transmission, okay? And I'd like to thank Galen Giesler for being our audio-visual person tonight. And tonight's talk is titled, well, I guess it's changed actually. American Anxiety as Seen Through the Lens of Complexity. And this is by Dr. Donald Neeper. This talk examines how our national polarization emerges from our everyday interactions with consequences that run deeper than just competitive politics. Don uses many illustrations to look at symptoms of American anxiety and to see what is different from 30, 40, 60, or 80 years ago. Today's polarization and our government dysfunction can be understood by viewing society as a complex system with group properties and emergent group behaviors. Don will explore our rules of interactions, some emergent group behaviors, and what we must change if we want to alter societal developments in America. So Don and his wife, Cary, were active members of the Los Alamos Unitarian Church from when they moved to Los Alamos in the fall of '68 until they left town in September of 2014 to move to be near their daughter in Palo Alto, California. Don is a retired applied physicist from the Los Alamos National Laboratory. He earned his bachelor's degree from Pomona College in California and his master's and PhD degrees from the University of Wisconsin. At Los Alamos, he has worked professionally on liquid helium, weapon theory, heat transfer, and remediation of polluted ground. He's also been a strong environmental advocate. For many years, he's maintained a blog that frequently examines societal subjects, particularly as understood by what we know about complex systems. He's recently, after I think much dedicated research, published a book titled American Anxiety and What You Can Do About It. If you're interested, we have a few copies that are going to be available afterwards for a $10 donation to the church. So Don is traveling with his daughter, Shawnee Workman, who, along with her two sisters, grew up in Los Alamos. So please join me in welcoming Don and Shawnee back to Los Alamos.
First, we have to try. I do hear my microphone's working. That's good. It's nice to be back. This is the first time I've ever been in this room. I see some friends here that I have known times before, and that feels very good. I should give you a bit of introduction as to what is this all about. It was, say, December of 2021 about I had been writing a blog about complex systems. And a complex system is just many things that interact with non-proportional rules. I might as well introduce that and get it over with. What do I mean by a non-proportional rule? If I meet you out in the hall and I step on your toes, you say, ouch. About an hour later, we meet again in the hall, I step on your toes, you say, ouch, ouch. Part of a day goes by, we happen to cross in the hall again, I step on your toes a third time, and you punch me in the nose. That's a non-proportional response. Okay, a non-proportional, a complex system is just many things interacting. People, fish, grains of sand, with non-proportional rules of interaction, whatever the interactions may be, stepping on toes or other things. I did write a book about it, and the book will be available. All funds spent for the book here go to the church and stay in the church. I'm not trying to make money. I'm not even out trying to sell books very much, although I'd like more people to get the ideas I tried to express in the books. I will tonight expand a little. We'll see how it goes, because I finished writing the book. I thought it would take 3 months to write the book. It took 3 years. But I finished writing the book about April of 2024. Then we went through a few months of editing, and then the rest of the time was wrestling with the publisher up until the book came out in June of this year. So I wrote the book trying to be neutral before the last election. I did not want to be partisan, but things have happened since the last election, and I think I should try to bring whatever relevance I can of those things into the things we discussed tonight. So there will be things I'll try to discuss tonight that are not in the book. They're beyond the book. They're after the book. Okay, why would I show a picture of field glasses and a magnifying glass? How we look at things is how we understand them. If you're sitting on the opposite side of a football field and I bring up the glasses, field glasses, I might recognize you and know who you are. But if you're up close and I shake your hand, I might look at your hand and see a sore spot. And I get out the magnifying glass and I can see what that sore spot is. But if you go to a doctor, the doctor will look at whatever that sore spot was by peeling off part of it and looking at it with a microscope. Each view is legitimate, but it depends what lens you're looking through. And so what we're doing tonight is trying to look at what's going on in our society using what we know about complexity as a lens. It isn't a cause, it isn't an effect, it's a lens, it's a way of understanding. So what's the anxiety that we have? Well, people now are worried about whether or not democracy will survive. Our government is not credible. We, for decades, have had gerrymandering, and now gerrymandering is becoming a popular thing to do. Polarization is not just two sides. That was the thing that got me interested, was reading modeling of polarization. But it's now identity. I'm either red or I'm blue. I'm not one or the other or halfway in between. We have targeted social media, we have fake news, and we're all getting used to it. What we don't have is the journalism we used to have, where we wanted a writer to actually go to the meeting or whatever's happening, bring back whatever that writer saw and write it up so we could read it. Instead, we have program news in which an interviewer will sit and discuss some situation with someone else who is a supposed expert on the situation, but nobody's telling you what are the facts, what really happened. Well, in the midst of all this, we simply have a Congress that's dysfunctional. It does not function as a Congress. for maybe some methods that we will see. What is it that makes us anxious about it? You know, we've been anxious before. Well, we can't talk about the political truths of our own society. We have official misbehavior that's rewarded by making more news, getting somebody's name in the newspaper more often. Lying is the standard now for appointed officials. They got to lie to show their loyalty. Government is replacing competence then with obedience. That's what's going on now. We are setting up government headquarters, at least for the nation, driven by people whose sole quality is their loyalty, their way of obeying the president. ICE is now secret police, and that sort of confirms our worry about the loss of individual rights. We see it. We remember dictatorships in Germany and Russia and wonder if we're headed that way. Well, in Germany, the dictatorship got started by speeches by a funny old man. And I remember I had a friend in graduate school whose grandmother told him she used to go to the bars in Germany to hear this crazy guy talk because he was so silly. It was Hitler. He became Hitler. Maybe that would still be there, but we blew the country away, basically, in World War II. But dictatorships arose more or less by the similar process. In Russia, the dictatorship is still there. They washed past communism, but the dictatorship is still there. Once you get a dictatorship, it's hard to get rid of. We sense that there's something abnormally just different. I look around and I see kids being driven at age 6 to competitive sports on Saturday, soccer, baseball, or whatever it might be. But in my age and in my children's age, there were games in the street or in the front yard where the kids interacted with each other and developed their own social rules instead of a laid-on bunch of competitive instructions. We see increasing population, and we're ignoring the commons. I'll use that word commons again, but it means the things that we all need, we all use, we all live with, but you can't find a price on them or a way to do something with them. Well, a warming climate. A climate is one of the commons. We have a warming climate. We know it's warming. I saw the early data on this in 1986, I think. I was at a technical solar meeting. We haven't done anything much about it. We've tried, but we haven't stopped the progress. Misbehavior is now politically popular. The way to attract attention as a politician is to misbehave. We have an economic gap with hopeless poverty. I'll show some data on that to show you what I mean. But those of us in this room are not part of that economic gap. We don't feel it, but many others do. So I looked around for symptoms or symbols, things I could show. Here is the American annual mass shootings from 2014 up through when I could last get the data, I guess, 2023. And you see it's rather level up to 2018, and then you see a steep rise. What's going on? Well, that's coincident with when we started getting a lot of everything from the internet. People who were beginning teens in 2014 were fully into the internet by about 2020. And maybe one part of the anxiety gets expressed in personal violence from people who might find some other way out. It's just coincident, but there it is. This is the wealth per household. And it's in arbitrary units. It's a logarithmic scale, means every horizontal line is a factor of 10 higher than the previous horizontal line beneath it. And if you look, the top blue line is the top 0.1% of all households. So if I made these arbitrary numbers dollars, if the units were dollars, the top blue line would end here about 2022, 2023 at maybe $200. If I combine the top two lines, that's 0.1% and 0.9%, you'll get a top 1%. And that levels out at about $42 if you add the numbers. If we move on down to the green line, I should look at it. No, I can't tell what color it is. It's the 50 to 90% line. That's the top upper 40% of our society, shall we say. That's middle class America. That's the folks that are here with me tonight, more or less. And they come out at having $1 there. Well, that's a comfortable life. Now let's look at the bottom 50%. They've got 7 cents. Does that tell you something? It shows up elsewhere in the talk, but this seems like a good time to bring it up. Our way of dealing with poverty has been welfare. We've been using welfare for some period of time, decades. It has never cured poverty. Poverty is the absence of opportunity. You have to have opportunity. And if you're at the 7-cent level, you don't have opportunity. That's the problem. You notice that bottom line has a steep dip about 2008 when we had a little recession. I happened to be in, can't think of the name of the city, place where automobiles are made. Detroit. I was in Detroit during that time, and I walked around and I saw blocks of houses just boarded up. Good houses, better houses than I lived in, brick houses. That sort of drove home to me the situation. Our anxieties, I'm trying to say, stems from the properties of the whole society, not one cause, one effect. We can't cure poverty, for example, just by throwing dollars at it. We need to understand what's going on. So I say we need to understand complexity because society is many people interacting, and that's a complex system. And we know a few things about complex systems. That's simple. It isn't really complicated unless you go read the theoretical books about it. What's a complex system? I said it's many things working together. Free agents interacting according to non-proportional rules, where doubling the cause does not double the effects. And that's how we live every day. We live with non-proportional rules. Example shown on the left side is a school of fish swimming around a column of seaweed. This is in a museum. Somebody stirs up the water and stirs the fish in the morning, and they keep swimming in a circle around that column all day. You can stand there and watch them. I took this picture. What's a nonlinear rule, simple rule of interaction? Probably follow the two fish in front of you. What is going on here is you have a whole bunch acting without a leader, without an order. They're just following their rule of interaction. One fish, if you take one fish out of there, it doesn't have any schooling characteristics. So the characteristics of a complex system come from as an emergent character of the system. It emerges from the system like the school emerges from a bunch of fish. It's not characteristic of one fish. The right-hand picture is just another thing. I had to take out something else that was not classified, but copyrighted. It's a picture of a lady in front of a termite mound in Australia. And termites are a whole bunch of animals that don't seem to follow the leader, but somehow they all know what to do, and they build up a huge mound like this in which they live. I don't know what their rules of interaction are, but I know if I disturb them, they'll come after me. The cute girl there is the lady I married long before that. The internet has changed our means of interaction. That's what's different now. We have the internet, which we didn't have before. We had anxieties before, but they could be focused. Let's see if I list any of them. No, I'll give you another show at an anxiety. This is just a diagram of data. It is the percent of kids, let's say, depressed, distressed or depressed in high school age. And the top dashed line is the girls, and it gets up above 50% by 2020. The bottom line is boys. Well, boys don't seem to get quite so distressed, but they show the same characteristic. Boys can go out and beat each other up with football if they want, but the girls used to get their positive reassurance from other girls in a group. But now they go to the internet where somebody can play games and have a fun thing going of let's make Susie look bad, and then Susie is depressed. And so that curve follows the growth of the internet. That's what's going on. What it means is where you used to have 100 people that you were in connection with and dealt with, you now have 1,000, 10,000, I don't know. They all have access to your data. They can all contact you. So the complexity has increased greatly. What are the characteristics? I had said emergence, where the characteristic whole that you see is not the same as any one of the parts. Complex systems have fluctuations. Weather is a complex system. You have a few biggies like tornadoes. You have many small breezes. So you have lots of little fluctuations and a few big ones in a complex system. I'll show why that's not true in other systems. You have self-organization, a spontaneous order going on. A big enough corporation, is it really a complex system? A political party, a religious denomination. Many people interacting with non-proportional rules. Characteristic of complex systems is they're not predictable. The future is not for sure going to look like the past, because the activity in a complex system depends on where it is right now and its next stage. Doesn't depend on its whole history, it depends on where it is right now. And so you get what feels like a very noisy behavior, very rattly behavior. It means it's difficult to predict. It operates at the edge of chaos. It isn't chaotic, but it operates, so it's hard to tell the difference. I use as an example the Dow Jones Industrial Value for about 8 months of the last year, up from August through June. And if you look at it, you see there are lots of little jiggles, daily jiggles. And then every so often, there's a little bigger hump of a few days long. And then every so often, you get a great big hump right in the middle. For instance, a big drop and then a big rise. And it jiggles along a while, and then you see some other big drops or big rises. And that is how complex systems behave, including the stock market. It is a complex system. You have many actors, buyers and sellers. They're all interacting, and each one has got his own set of rules. If we look at this as best we can in general, we think of a normal system, that is a random system, the thing we all compare our data with. We compare our population with these kind of curves and other things. And it is a bell-shaped curve. You see when the size of the event gets large, the probability of the event gets small. If it gets large enough, there aren't any more events But for a complex system, it is so-called power law. It's logarithmic in behavior. That's the red line. You see a rapid drop-off as the size of events gets larger, but it carries on to very large events. So complex systems can have very large events occasionally. And sure enough, we see it. That's where that stock market example was worthwhile. So how does this understanding of complexity relate to what we are experiencing now? Anybody over 40 years of age says, well, things aren't the way they used to be. What's changed? It's the internet and cell phones. Our individual connections grew, as I mentioned, from maybe 100 to 10,000, I don't know. But program media got replaced. Newspapers got put away. We lost journalism. Journalism is where somebody actually goes, investigates the facts, comes back, and reports the facts. And our anxiety became a group behavior. See if I made a slide for this. I'm going to back up one. Our anxiety became a group behavior, and so people have told me, we've been anxious before, you can't put your story on top of anxiety. And what I say at this point is, in World War II, we were sure anxious, but about one thing, the war. I remember as a child going down past houses. A house might have a little sign, a little sticker in the front window. It was either blue or red. If it was blue, they had a person in the service. If it was red, he was already dead. But our anxiety was focused. So why use the lens of complexity? Society is a complex system. And if we want to alter our emergent social behaviors now, we have to adjust our rules of interaction. That's where we are. You can't cure poverty just by throwing money at it. And that's true of the other problems we have. Here's another one of my favorite examples. To change an emergent behavior, you got to change the rule of interaction. So dry sand is particles, and they interact. One particle pushes on another. It depends what angle one of them is versus the other, which is pointed, what isn't, and how much is pushing on every other particle. And so you see avalanches. If you keep adding sand, a little stream of sand to the top of the sand pile, you'll see a little avalanche, and then another little one. And then once in a while, you'll see a bigger avalanche. And eventually, you'll see an avalanche that goes all the way to the end of the sand pile. Characteristic of a complex system. But every child knows how to prevent the avalanches, right? How do you stop the avalanche of a sand pile? Somebody got it out there. Speak up. You can say it.
I said wet the sand.
Water, sure. You've changed the forces between the sand particles. You've replaced the pushing forces by the suction forces of the surface tension of the water. And now a child can build a vertical wall of sand if he wants to. When it dries out, it'll fall down. But okay, that's just an example. So where did our rules come from? Millions of years ago, maybe, whatever it was that humans started, we got a reward for joining with others. Tribalism, joining, helping each other. We got a pleasure-producing compound released in our brains, dopamine. So when you hear something you like, you get a little bit of dopamine, a little charge. When somebody congratulates you or appreciates you, you get a little sense of pleasure. All right? So to gain approval, men wear a tuxedo to a church wedding. That's what I thought of as an example. But if the wedding is at the beach, He doesn't wear a tuxedo. That's not a way to generate approval if you go to the beach, unless you're trying to do misbehavior, unless you're a politician doing misbehavior. Well, news is now programmed to attract us and make us feel good, attract us or repel us to drive us in a given direction. Social media are now programmed to stimulate, and that is a society-wide phenomenon. It gets into really our biological rules of what makes us feel good. So we have some subconscious social rules. What are they? Now we're dealing with my opinion of things. This isn't tallied anywhere that I know of. I say winning is the #1 American rule. We take kids at age 6 to competitive games and start teaching them to win. The important thing is for your team to win and for you to be loyal to your team and wear your team's hat or your team's shirt. Sound familiar? Isn't that what we do in society? One of the things we do is being right by making others wrong. We don't do it so much. Politicians do it a lot. But that's one of the things that is a subconscious social rule. We have loyalty. That's cheering for the correct team. Loyalty is something we trade, we sell for a guaranteed acceptance. If I promise to be loyal to your cause, whatever it is, you will welcome me in and I'll get a little shot of dopamine. How we meet and greet. When we meet somebody, there's a rule, maybe for shaking hands, but there's times when you meet somebody and you don't shake hands. If you're Japanese, you might bow. There are different ways of meeting and greeting. And we want to meet people who are in our own tribe, who meet the way we meet. So if I meet a guy that's lying on the street in San Francisco in ragged clothes, I don't usually rush over and shake his hand. More social behaviors. Distrust in government. We can't even trust our own government. We have paralysis in our legislatures because we can't negotiate. We have polarized identity. We saw that in the COVID time when there were people who wore masks and people who didn't wear masks as political statements, as identity statements. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene suggested we should get a national divorce because people who are blue are moving away from red areas and people who are red are moving away from blue areas or states, even though where they're going, they don't know anybody. That's because they don't know their neighbors either. They don't interact with their neighbors. We are conducting tribalism, but we're joining tribes we haven't met. We're getting tailored information, the news, social media, and even in our schools. The political left sort of forced racism and gender into schools as topics to be talked about. The political right is now forcing the removal of race and gender from schools as topics that can be talked about. And so we get polarized politics in which loyalty forbids talk with the other side. That's the way it is where I live. I've talked to other people who say that's the way it is where they are in a big social group. Big, in my case, the social group is 200 people living in the same place and going to the same dining hall for meals. My point, why am I talking about all this? If you can't talk about it, you're powerless to change it. So if you don't like the way your society is going, you have to be able to talk about it and get others to talk about it. And if I want to control you, I will do my best to keep you from talking about it. Why such an anxious response? It generates conflict. We have an internal conflict. We have unrealistic ideals. Our ideals include free choice, free democratic elections, free markets, free speech. Well, sort of free speech. When all of us were young, you couldn't discuss sex in Sunday school, so we didn't have fully free speech. But now we can't discuss politics in polite company. And until we grow out of that, we can't do anything about it. Our ideals of freedom and democracy presumed limitless land and resources, those ideals up there. And information was transmitted by horseback. We're in a different place now. Things are different. Information transmission is immediate. The question is it information or is it something else that's being transmitted? Why am I concerned? Because our ideas, those four kinds of ideals for freedom, they do not protect anything we regard as the commons. Health, climate, the environment in general, above climate, a place to be, that is, where do you live? What kind of place can you live in where you can associate with things that are significant to you? So it's a roof over your head, but it's more than a roof over the head. That sense of being is a common. Land use is a common. We have forests, we have a few things like that, national parks. But for the most part, we say land use is determined by the owner. So the freedom to do what you want does not protect anything that's common. A very desirable thing is equitable government. We want the government to treat each of us the same way, equitably. And there's nothing in terms of our freedoms that causes equitable behavior at all. So we have a conflict between our ideals and our reality, and we get anxious. American polarization is an emergent group behavior, and that behavior of our own society, that characteristic, is making us anxious. We develop polarization with each side focused on winning. I'm trying to think of one more example of this. It doesn't matter. I brought up that kids are being taught to win. And we think are upset with current government because it may or may not be doing what we want. But it's a result of winning. But this has been under development for 1 or 2 decades for the arrangement of a situation in which Congress is impotent, the Supreme Court is impotent, and one side has total control that is managed through loyalty. Loyalty follows money in this type of sense. So what's new this year? Loyalty based on money unites the 3 branches of government. The 3 branches behave together based on loyalty. We have questions coming up with personal rights for corporations and churches, and I would maintain that if we want an equitable society, neither polarizations nor churches should have personal rights. Why would I bring up churches? Because I think it was the president just mentioned that churches should be able to make political statements. We found out that courts cannot enforce the judgments they make. Courts make the judgment and claim you're guilty and you're sentenced to 10 years in prison, but the courts don't put you in prison for 10 years. They rely on the police to do that, but that's the administrative branch to carry out the issue of the courts. And so we wind up with a case where the president doesn't have limits on rulemaking or redesign of the administration or the secret police. And what's going on right now, this is a brand new slide, federal troops are appearing in cities like Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles, California. That's what's new this year. But we have to understand where it comes from. If you think it comes from one person, It comes from the structure that we have. More examples, elimination of government agencies. All right, we're wiping out or severely taking down parks, forestry, and budgetary considerations, and we're totally altering what we mean by immigration. There is, so I read at the time I made the slide, a new bill to fund 10,000 new ICE officers and $46 billion for Mexican border infrastructure that I'm not sure you need if you have enough officers to keep people from crossing the border. Recently it was announced that tariffs are used to control other countries. There was a proposed 50% tariff for Brazil as a retaliation for their head of government maintaining the case against a former Brazilian president. So it has reached kind of the bottom level of trading favors to create inter-country, international loyalty. A dictatorship does not need a majority. It needs separated, fearful, and loyal minorities. Separated meaning they don't talk to each other. Each group interested in its own isolated maintenance and in protecting itself. If you're a congressman, you don't want to say something cruel about the other side because they will bring in enough money to get rid of you in the next election, if there is a next election. Point here is things we hold in common have no loyalty to offer. The commons, the things that we, I think, treasure, can be maintained only by an active society. I'll give that one example. A right to vote has no loyalty. If we have a general, really practical and enforced rule about your right to vote, there's no loyalty based in it because nobody knows, or it isn't anybody's business, how you're going to use your vote. So what can we do? I hear a lot of people talking about Trump as the cause of what's going on. Trump is the result of what's going on. He's not the cause. To alter a complex system, you have to change at least one and maybe several rules of interaction. Example, we did not control exposure during COVID. We were very late in coming on and somewhat careless in our statements of you should wear masks. The Australians had a much smaller death rate in the early stages of COVID than we had. I can't remember if theirs was 2% or 10% of ours, but it was much lower because they enforced separation. If you lived there, you stayed in your house until you got over it. One of the members of our of our college class is in Australia and has lived there ever since college. And she was saying, oh yeah, we just didn't go out. Nobody did. You didn't. Both sides of their political divide agreed on this, and they passed the rule, you don't go out. So what actions do you have for yourself? I say, look at yourself and review your own rules. And can any of the rules that you follow help lead to the emergent behaviors we have? I say, go ahead, discuss forbidden topics in mixed political company. Until we can do that, it's hopeless. Go to a local meeting of the opposite party. Invite a small group to discuss the polarity, to discuss what's going on. Is this the way we want to run our country in a polarized fashion? Turn off your social media for one day and then turn it off for a week. I read an article by somebody who did that and said the change in their life was amazing. They would not go back to it. So ask yourself for something you're trying to accomplish. Are you seeking to suppress a behavior? They vote differently than I do, or they're from a different party. I want to stop them. Or am I trying to alter the rules of behavior, which means talking with them, not at them? There are federal actions, yes, but we have to get leaders who are devoted to solving problems instead of being devoted to winning. Right now, we elect leadership to win. Wrong way. We need ranked choice voting. There is an appendix in my book that deals with ranked choice. It is a hopeful way to go, but watch out for it. There is a nasty catch in it if you set it up wrong. And the way it was proposed once in Congress was the wrong way. We should end personal rights for corporations and churches. We should limit political donations by PACs, where the billions of dollars go in, and by individuals. Here's one that'll get everybody mad at me. We should tax capital gains and wages equally. If you get your money, why should the governments care whether you got it from capital gains or by working? Instead, we say, oh, if you got it by capital gains, well, that's risky. We'll tax you less. If you got it by grubbing with a shovel in the dirt all the day, oh, we understand that. We'll tax it more. Okay. And here's another one that'll get me in trouble. End tax deductions for contributions to nonprofits. We all give money where we think it's important to things we think are good. But if I give money to an association that does reporting, that I think does honest reporting, why should you have to pay more tax because I choose to do that? Or if I choose to give a lot of money to the church, as I thought I once did here 20 years ago or so, why should somebody else have to pay more tax because I choose to do that? Conclusion. Recognize the rules of interaction around you. Once you get tuned up, start looking around. See if you see them. Regard group-wide behaviors as emergent things, not just characteristics of individuals. In other words, see if you can avoid the them versus us outlook. To fix an emergent problem, look for a rule of interaction. Don't look for a cause. They're poor people, they're not working. They have no chance to go get a good job. You have to work on opportunity if you're going to solve poverty. So I say, take some wild stabs. In California, we've got too much traffic. I say, don't build more highways, you'll just get more traffic. For polarization, don't support one party, support open dialogue. Yeah, for poverty, I already said it. Don't apply money, you've got to apply opportunity, whatever it takes. And so that's the end of the story. I have a few copies of the book out here. I think it's in the back room somewhere. I'm not trying to make money with it. The book sales are $10 each. All $10 goes to the church, and I had to pay for those books myself, and they cost me $10 as author. So it's a way of donating to the church. That's it.
Thank you, Don.
Now, questions and answers. We have a few minutes. Yeah, you are free to fry me. I said, I tried to say controversial things up here.
Okay, is this on, Galen? Yep.
She should call on the
Any
people.
questions? Dean, get that one. Yeah, I think it's on.
Is it on?
Yep.
Thanks, Keith. So Don, one of the new emerging technologies, which is artificial intelligence known as AI, seems to be another, what I would consider a disruptor, and could have profound effects on society, people as individuals, etc. Have you looked at that at all?
I'm not an expert on AI. I haven't looked at it, so I can just tell you what I think. It is a high-speed, massively potent means for transmitting misinformation.
you had a list of things that we as individuals could do. Can you give some examples where that's worked from your own life?
Yeah, I have to think about it for a minute.
That's a tough one.
Writing this book, I had to hide in my office for 3 years to get that thing done without going out and socializing. So that was my way of socializing, trying to get this story out somewhere where somebody else would get exposed to it. So there's one example. A second example is I will not be confined in my own dining hall to politically correct approaches and statements. The thing to do is, there's a lady who is very far to the right, and I often sit next to her. So my aim when I get back is to take her aside and say, look, you're here, I'm there, but 80% of what's in between we both love. So I will do my best to torque you at the dining hall. But don't worry about it. It does not impede our friendship. There's
Other questions?
sort of example.
So Don, the other thing I was made aware of the other day through a podcast was a book written about the science of revenge. And if you look at what you were just talking about, winning, right, it takes a scientific approach to why do we get so happy, for lack of a better term, about revenge. And it turns out that it also gives you a dopamine spike when you start playing these revenge scenarios in your head, which is similar to your winning type scenarios.
I see revenge as another way of winning. If I shoot you because I don't approve of you, I just won. Now, there may be other consequences, but...
Well, Hollywood has done a really good job of using revenge in movies to sell them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you agree with what happened in the movie and feel good about the revenge, you get your own shot of dopamine.
Does UNM have a course on complex systems? Where can we study complex systems?
I can't tell you right off the top. That question I've had before, and the answer I gave to a lady, I said, there's a small book written by, and now I can't remember his name, but he's an expert in the field. She looked at it, and she said, I got lost in there, because eventually he gets into the mathematics of it. So at the moment, I can't help you. What did I read in all the years that I was writing my blog touching on complexity? I don't know.
Don, can I answer her question?
Yeah, somebody else has got the answer.
I just finished Don's book. It's 180 pages, and it is written for people like you and me. It's a good introduction to his complex systems, and I highly recommend it. And I got my copy on Kindle, and it was $2 and something. Sorry about that, but no. And if you want to go deeper, he references like you wouldn't believe everything he says. So I highly recommend you reading it. And I did it in a little over a day. I managed to get it read.
Yeah, I heard her say 180 pages, 108. That would be the total page count, but of the real text that you read as story, it's about 70, 75. And then there's references, but there's also quite a number of pages where I look at ranked choice voting. That's an appendix. And so that adds up the page count. But I was trying to keep it short enough so maybe we could interest college freshmen in it. Maybe we could interest people who are over 40 in it. That's what I was trying to do.
Two quick questions. First, I am using the microphone, okay? First, you've mentioned a lot of things that should be done. What can we do to actually reverse the political direction of the country in the next 10 to 15 years? That's the first question. And the second one is, have you heard of a group called the Braver Angels?
I haven't heard of the Angel group, but since I haven't been out in the world, it's not surprising that there's things going on I haven't heard of. And you're saying, what can we really do? Well, like I said, if you're registered as a Democrat, go attend political party meetings of the Republicans. And then talk to the Republicans. Invite them out for a beer or whatever you like to drink. Go to more bars and chat with people. Talk to your neighbors. Nobody's sitting on their front porch talking to neighbors anymore. Yeah. Talk to people. We have to be able to communicate about these things, or we will be forbidden to communicate about things that disagree with whoever's running the show.
So Don,
We're getting close to that now.
one thing is that, the level of anxiety that I know personally I've been feeling, and I can say that other people I know have also been feeling that, has led me to choose to do very local things. Like, if I know someone who needs a meal, if I know someone who needs a ride, if I know someone who needs a visit. So what I've done, in a sense, is actually absent myself from anything that has to do with a political party or that type of thing, which I don't think is actually very helpful for someone's question about what do we do, because I just want to work locally because I find a great, I feel the connection better. So what do you call that in your system? I mean, am I ignoring something here?
I'll be glad to address it, but it might not be an answer that you like. What you're doing is being good. You are helping people who need the kind of help you can give. What you're getting for that is a little reward of dopamine. You've done something good, and somebody has approved. In how many of those occasions have you talked with people about their political loyalties and where the country is going? Okay, you got your answer.
Is this turned on? Yes. First of all, it's great to have you back, and thanks for coming. Second of all, you were talking a lot about the internet and iPhones and so on causing a lot of problems. One of the problems, a couple I would say, is that we are a lot more aware not just of misinformation, but also of information. And one of the big ones is this free ride with resources and pollution and all that kind of stuff looks like it's coming to an end. Maybe not in my lifetime, but certainly by my grandchildren's lifetime. And I think kids are very much aware of that, but I don't know for sure. So it's an effect, I guess, of having so much access to data that it's mixed up, but it's still, I think, a main thing that has evolved with kids. The second thing I was thinking of is how isolated we are. Cars are very isolating. So we don't see our neighbors because we get in the car, then we open up the garage door and we go driving off down and get into some other place downtown or wherever you're going, and you end up in your office. You're never meeting people in all of that kind of thing. All these people going around and never seeing each other or talking to each other. Neighborhoods are not just kids playing outside. Now they go in. We used to go in to watch television when it was new, and people were saying that's going to ruin us, you know, in terms of isolating us more. And of course, 1984 talked about that as well. So I just wanted to bring out the isolation and the real fear, I think, that is present among most of our younger population now, who see that things are going to fall apart in terms of environment and sustainability and so on before their lifetimes are over.
See, I am isolated. The younger people I talk to just all happen to be my 4 grandchildren. But I get back an impression from talking to them, and it's only an impression, but particularly an in-depth expression with one who did some pre-reading on this book. And that is, she's in charge of a chemical laboratory. She just has a bachelor's degree, but she did the good work, and it's a place that tests medicines and things for their chemical acceptability. Medicines, badges, equipment, whatever it is, they test it. And she says the young people under her, young meaning she's 30 and they're younger than 30, all come and say, ever since we were growing up, they've been telling us the world's going to hell. And I'm not doing anything with it. I'm not taking any part of that. In other words, absolving themselves of responsibility for it. And I fear that that could be a widespread attitude, but I do not know.
So, Don, I have a question too. I'd be interested in your opinion of Gavin Newsom's move in response to the gerrymandering and the manipulation in Texas. Could you not hear that? Okay. Could you hear me, Don, or no?
I could hear you.
Okay.
She asked me about my thoughts regarding the response of the governor of California to the actions in Texas of dividing the zoning districts. Did I get it right? Yes. Yeah. I can't remember, I'm telling you the truth, what Newsom's response was. I remember reading it. But I said to myself, the most difference it will make is for Trump or one of Trump's appointees to try to make more trouble for Gavin Newsom. That'll be the only effect. I don't know. I've got no wisdom. I never studied sociology in school.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, the first thing I'll say is I know what not to do. I was calling the Trump voters in my family morons, and that didn't work too well.
Being right by making others wrong.
So,
yeah.
Okay, second part. I don't know if my numbers are exactly correct, but in the last election, I think there were 248 million eligible voters. Is that correct, roughly?
I don't know.
248? But the number that really put me on my ear was the 90 million who voted neither for Harris or Trump. So that tells me that there's a sizable fraction of Americans who don't give a damn. All right? That's my opinion.
Okay, but I went there tonight saying ranked choice voting offers us a good hope, because then you check your first choice, and you check your second choice, and you check your third choice. And if your first choice happens to be conservative, and then your second, and somebody else votes liberal, and you get 40 to 40, nobody wins. So you move down to the next choice. Now, in most of the systems that have been proposed for ranked choice voting, at that point, when nobody has won the first vote, you eliminate the loser of the first vote. And if there were only 3 candidates, you've just eliminated the candidate that everybody really wanted to vote for. We want to give those people a chance to vote.
Hello, Don. I'm Tina Dio. I'm the minister here, so thank you for coming and doing this presentation. I was sitting in the library back there listening, so thank you. And I was just thinking during your talk about, like, yeah, how do we come together in conversations with people? And this is why I really value the Unitarian Universalist tradition, because we're a values-based tradition. And so I always go with the mantra of, like, oh, if we have more conversations around our similar common values versus red or blue, right? Like, oh, we all have a common value to keep our kids safe. Let's talk about that, right? Like, can we have more of those types of conversations in our communities around these similar common values? And your thoughts about that?
My thought about that is a little challenging. That's right in the long term, but in the short term, we need to have conversations about why we can't have conversations. Yeah, we'd all like to talk about our kids' safety. Everybody wants their kids to be safe, but that's not getting to where our differences are.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. I want to give a round of applause to Don.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was a very thought-provoking talk, and we can all continue our conversations in the fellowship hall out the door and to your right.
Should I take that home with me?
Take that with you, it's yours.
Okay.
It's your favorite.
This is my thing for the night. Now. Yeah, he's got me off. No, I'm not sure. I'm still not.
Than your book.
Yes, because a year went by.
Still be on.
Yeah, let me get this off. There's tape here somewhere. There. Yeah, take it off. Yeah,
I have no idea if it's on.
I sort of tried to warn people. This isn't quite the book.
Yeah, but enjoyed it. Okay, well, you should probably go in the other room and answer questions.
Are you taking these things?
I'll take that back to Galen, yeah.
Okay. I'll be done this.
This is a legitimate exit.
Yes, it is.
You
But,
said everybody go out that way.
well, that's because that goes to nowhere. I don't know if it's lit.
Well, but in case of